Back to my roots, because my first ever bike was this 2004 Daytona 600. At the time I thought it was awesome, but looking back now with more experience and more objectivity, it was actually a very ordinary bike. In 2006, Triumph gave us the Daytona 675, which, despite being very nimble and very fast with 128 horsepower, fell victim to the general decline in sports bike sales and was withdrawn from the catalogue in 2017. 7 years on, and it's back, kind of, with the 660cc engine from the Trident. It's been tweaked to give an extra 15 horsepower, and there are a couple of other modifications like the geometry and the brakes, as well as clip-on bars, but this is more of a daily rider type sports bike than an out-and-out track day weapon that its predecessor was. I'll give you my 2 cents as to whether I think reusing the Daytona name was a good idea towards the end of the video, but for the moment let's see what this new version is like. Always a subjective point, but I think it's a good looking bike, especially from the front with its slimline, aggressively angled lights. Side on it's okay too, maybe a little bit generic looking, but it's at the rear that things start to go slightly awry in my opinion. The Trident-esque tail isn't quite as sharp as the old 675s, and as with all sports bikes, a nice little tail tidy would improve the look considerably. This pearlescent white paintwork is gorgeous, especially in the sun. Best colour in my opinion, and also free. The red and matte anthracite options are an extra €100 for some reason. Thing is though, its main competitors are also good lookers. I'll come on to them in a moment. So this new 2024 Daytona isn't quite as sharp as the 675 to look at. It's less hardcore, but I suppose that's how Triumph is pitching the 660 in today's slightly less leery market. In terms of fit and finish, as with most recent Triumphs, it's pretty much beyond reproach. Beautiful paintwork, as I said, nice details like the quality swing arm, big brakes up front. There are no ugly welds showing or wires flapping about like you might see, for example, on a Yamaha. The stubby exhaust and cat are nicely tucked away, and everything is well screwed together. How about comfort? Well, there's good wind protection around the legs and torso thanks to the nicely aerodynamic front end. The rider's head doesn't fare quite so well though. There's a screen, but it's tiny and set quite horizontally, so practically at my stomach height, I'm 6'2" or 187 centimeters. And if I do strain to press down against the tank, I've got my face, or rather the visor, about an inch away from the top of the screen, which is a bit unnerving. To be honest, the Daytona is too compact a bike for someone of my height, and I knew this was going to be the case even before I sat on it. It's fine for half an hour, but does become a bit tiring after that. The suspension is on the firm side, but not really uncomfortable. No vibrations from the 3-cylinder engine either through the seats, bars or pegs, although I did feel some through the right-hand lever under very hard braking. This could be a slightly warped disc, which is quite common on press and demo bikes as they tend to be ridden hard. The seat is at 810mm, non-adjustable, which puts it within range of most riders, and it's comfortable too, well padded and big enough to move around on. Mrs. RM didn't fancy perching on the pillion seat though, and I can't say I blame her. I guess it would be okay for short distances 2 up, but maybe look elsewhere if you're looking to do some serious miles with a passenger. Coming back to the brakes, they've been uprated and you now get 4-pot radially mounted calipers over the Trident's twin-pot Nissins. The resulting feel is really very, very good. Much more powerful front-end bite than I remember from the Trident that I owned 3 years ago. The rear brake's okay, but only okay, as is often the case, and you need to stamp on it pretty hard for any meaningful slowing down to occur. Something not made any easier by the tiny, and I have to say, very cheap-looking rear brake lever. What are the instruments like? Terrible. No, that's not fair. All the info you need is there, but the whole unit has been lifted straight from the ever so slightly boring Tiger 660 Sport, and I didn't like it on that either. Much of the text is written too small, so my failing eyesight sometimes struggles to read the info, and with those unnecessary white lines painted around the sides that remind me of the poverty spec family cars that my dad used to buy in the 1970s, it all looks just a bit basic and disappointing. The switchgear has a pleasing tactile feel to it though, not backlit of course, you won't be getting that at this price, but it does feel nice to use, it's logically laid out, and as the bike has relatively few electronic features, there aren't too many buttons to worry about. How about the engine? Well, good news. Definitely feel the extra horsepower of the Trident, at least at the top end. It's very smooth, it's not at all vibey, it's tractable, forgiving, there's a good dollop of low-down torque, especially compared to the Honda CBR, which really needs working to extract all its power. But when you do rev the Daytona, say above 7,500 RPM, you get that extra bit of power that I always craved for when I owned the 80 horsepower Trident. Triumph claim a 0 to 100 kph, 0 to 60 miles an hour, time of 3.6 seconds, and it certainly felt capable of that. I tried it myself, very unscientifically, just counting the seconds off in my head as I accelerated, and I hit 100 in just under 4. Plenty fast enough for the road then. There's the nice triple sound, plus that intoxicating induction sound once you're going, and a quick shifter is available as an option. Not strictly necessary, but it's always great fun. My demo bike didn't have it, but the one on my Trident was very good, very smooth, so I imagine this one on the Daytona is at least as good 3 years down the road. So how about the competition? Well, after a few years of complete market domination, or so it seems, by adventure bikes, manufacturers seem to be waking up to the idea that there is still a residual demand for mid-size, relatively affordable sports bikes. And there have been a few come along in the last year or so. The Aprilia RS660, 11.9, 95 horsepower, 183 kilos, so significantly lighter than the others. Looks great with a punchy engine, maybe let down by the finish, and you're lucky to find a dealer close by. This is the one I'd be most interested in personally, however. It's the most expensive, but you can tell why. Then there's the Honda CB650R E-Clutch, the new model. 10,200, 95 horsepower, 211 kilos. Excellent fit and finish on a par with the Triumph. Good protection and surprisingly comfortable, more so than the Daytona. But the engine lacks usable torque lowdown, and I don't think the brakes are that good. I'm hoping to try this magic new E-Clutch soon, so I'll give you my verdict on here as soon as I can. Then the Daytona itself. In white, it comes in at 9,900 euros, 95 horsepower, 201 kilos. Initially looks like a bit of a bargain, but if you add the quick shifter, which you really should, at 400 euros and a paint scheme other than white, if you don't like the white, which is another 100 euros, then it comes to the same price as all the other competitors. You've got the Suzuki GSX 8R, 9,700, a little bit down on power, 83 horsepower, 205 kilos, looks fantastic, punchy engine, although it does push out a lot of heat, which is an issue for me here in southern Portugal. Good handling, but it could do with a few more horses. The shifter isn't the smoothest, especially on downshifts, and I found the ABS a bit intrusive, which is a problem if you intend using it on the track. Finally, the Yamaha R7, 10,400, only 74 horsepower, nice and light at 188 kilos though. This is a real old school sports bike with a race-tuned front end and characterful twin, but it's uncomfortable, and as with a lot of Yamahas, the fit and finish is disappointing. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room, Triumph's reusing the Daytona name. Now, I can usually tell how well one of my videos is going to do by the reaction to the community post I send out a few days before. I'm riding such and such a bike today, is there anything you'd specifically like me to cover in my review? And I usually get a lot of helpful input and ideas. But not so this time with the Daytona. And I think that a lot of the negativity, or well, maybe not negativity, let's call it cynicism or skepticism, is down to Triumph's choosing to reuse the name of the relatively hardcore and certainly hyper-exciting 675 Daytona. Now, of course, manufacturers resurrecting names from their illustrious past isn't new. Think of the Mini, the Beetle, or the Bronco, or the Hornet, recently reintroduced by Honda. And we'd better get used to the idea because rumour has it that the Thruxton name is about to be reused on a cafe racer style bike based on the recent 400cc chassis. Thing is though, people aren't stupid, and if the vehicle is perceived as representing a step backwards in terms of handling, comfort, power, general excitement or whatever, or if it's just seen as a cynical marketing exercise designed to make money off the back of the original, then people aren't going to buy the idea or the product. And I fear this may prove to be the case with the new Daytona. It's a very nice bike, but I'd always have this nagging doubt that my mates would say things like, "Oh yeah, I had the 2015 model, you know, the 765, the real one." And they'd be right. The previous 765 Daytona was a track-focused weapon. This one might more accurately be described as a Daytona Light or a Daytona for beginners. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting for a moment that Triumph should have called it that. They wouldn't sell any. But maybe if they just toned it down a little bit, contented themselves with a sort of halfway house name, like, I don't know, the Trident Sport or the 660S, or even a Ducati-esque hybrid nonsense name like the Triumph Street Sport, I think the fanboys would be less wary and more willing to take the bike on board and give it a chance. The 2024 Daytona is a decent bike. It's powerful enough to keep me entertained. It's not too uncomfortable, especially I suspect if you're under 6 foot tall and or less than 40 years old. It's good looking, it's relatively affordable, beautifully finished, and if you consider it as the accessible sports bike it's marketed as, like the others I shortlisted, rather than an out-and-out track-ready super sports, then you won't be disappointed. Plus points for me would be the punchy engine, the elegant design, level of fit and finish. It's comfortable and easy to ride for a sports bike, and the brakes are truly excellent. Negatives would be a lack of wind protection from the tiny screen, that TFD dash that's too small and basic looking, and no quick shifter as standard. It's a €450 option, which is pretty steep, especially as Honda is now offering their e-clutch for just €300 in Portugal and much less in some countries like the UK, where I believe it's only a £100 option. And of course the e-clutch does a lot more things than a simple shifter. So would I buy the new Daytona? Nope, but I wouldn't buy the Fireblade or the Panigale either. My sports bike days are well and truly behind me. Regular viewers will know I recently bought a Triumph Tiger 900 because its comfort and versatility better match my riding needs and age. Sports bikes are right at the opposite end of the motorcycle spectrum. I loved my 2004 Daytona, but I was younger then and had different priorities. Objectively, the 2024 model is superior in just about every way to the old heifer that I had, and if you hanker after the nostalgia of the name, give it a try, it's good. Just make sure you also try the Aprilia 2. You might find it's worth the financial stretch. Just saying. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you're still supple enough to wrap your body around a sports bike and whether you'd go for the Daytona over one of the others. And as always, thanks for watching.